All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Tycho Talks. Today's topic's going to be a good one. We're going to go off the prompt things don't get easier, you just get stronger. And I think this is a great one because it really challenges the idea of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Now, I think a lot of people know the difference between those two mindsets, but really, obviously, a growth mindset is someone with the mentality to keep pushing and keep learning and not take no as an answer when they're hit with a barrier or they're hit with an obstacle, in their journey. And a fixed mindset is someone who, doesn't want to find a way around it, just, is hit with a failure, and they take that failure on board and they don't continue to pursue their goals and dreams. I think the mindset with this is really important because someone with a growth mindset is going to take that extra step and keep trying and keep building their resilience with whatever challenge they're going through. And that then will form into what we're going to talk about, where you adapt to the struggle and it becomes a lot easier, right? Or you become stronger along the way, and then the task becomes easier. I guess for you, man, do you have any experience with? Let's start with growth and fixed mindset. Like, what's your understanding of a growth and fixed mindset?
Yeah, I think willing to learn, I think, is what like screams out when you're trying to grow. Like, it's I feel like when you face a challenge and there's no like, it's that ability to say this is an opportunity to get better. But I don't know. I feel like some people don't see that as an option, which is I'm not sure why. I don't know. Do you think there's any reason why people don't have that lens or don't have that ability to see that way?
Yeah, for sure. I reckon there are so many different contributing factors. I think a big part of look the whole environment, nature versus nurture debate, right? Where there's this fight between, is it your environment that forms you into who you are, or is it your genetics? Is it your biology? And that debate's been going on for ages. Like, when I say debate, it's not like a full debate, but it's just research that goes into trying to figure out, is it our innate ability, or is it our environment that helps us reach our full potential? And I think with this one, I mean, I'd have to do a bit of research into what it is, but I'm sure there's some biology. I'm sure there's some genetic disposition that, like, for example, me, I don't think my environment necessarily shaped me into being self-motivated to want to not settle for average. Like, there was just something in me from an early age. And I think a part of that is like this innate, there's just part of my personality where it's like I just didn't want to settle for average. Because, my parents, it's not like I had an environment where my parents were going above and beyond. They were just doing the average thing. So I think part of it might be a biology, but then the reason I want to be careful with that is because people will then use that as an excuse and be, well, I wasn't, that wasn't a trait that I was blessed with. That wasn't a skill that I was blessed with to want to be better than the average and want more in life. And so I think environment's a big thing as well. Who you surround yourself with, what type of books you're reading. It might not be your immediate family, but people you come across along the way, they might spark something within you to want to push you to be better. I don't even know if I answered your question, bro, but does that
Mm.
make sense? Or
No, that's good. I like that. So, just for me to fully understand, are you saying that you think the biology plays a bigger factor?
no, I don't think it plays a bigger factor, but
Okay.
I think it plays a part for sure.
Because I feel like I would lean towards more like environment matters is it affects the human more, I think, because that's like your upbringing. I mean, you said your parents weren't particularly like didn't I don't know push you or whatever. I don't remember the exact words you said, but surely if you really started to think about it, like your friends or the people you surrounded yourself with, I think if you search hard enough, there'd be like you'd find a key influence, and then you could trace it back to, or maybe not. I'm not sure.
Honestly, so back to what I said, I don't think biology, and this is why I said I have to be careful with this, because people, if I was to come out and say biology is 80%, then people will say, well, just wasn't born that way then. I can't do it. I think biology definitely plays a part, but I wouldn't say it's the majority. I think with something like this, environment is massive. Your influence is big. For me though, and I'm just talking from personal experience, there wasn't anybody in my life really who was above average, who wanted more, right? Like there wasn't. There were at school, there wasn't. There was always something within me as an individual where I wanted to strive for more than just average in leadership positions at school, sport, everything. And I think that wasn't a replication of seeing someone else do it. So that's just for me personally. I think that there must have been a stronger innate uh, personality trait that I was born with that isn't allowing me to settle for average. I wouldn't say biology plays a massive part though. I'm just saying for me specifically. And for people who can look back and they're like, well, I had no influence. Like, how come my sisters and my brothers are bums? My parents are bums. All the people around me are bums. But I wanted more. There was something within me that just didn't want to settle for average. But you're right. Environment plays a massive part.
No, I
Massive
definitely
part.
agree with what you're saying. I think you cleared it up a lot. Something that came to mind is I was listening to a podcast on this is this is so random on Alexander the Fifth, and he was 16 when I don't remember the details, but he was in a battle and he got an arrow into his skull, 6 inches into his skull, and the historian on the podcast said it took 30 days of him lying in a surgeon. I don't know what they had back then, but probably not a very comfortable position to be in for 30 days with an open wound and them just trying to get it out. And the historian touched that Alexander must have had it's Henry V. Sorry. He must have his attitude to life must have been different, like really different. Like he had something else that other people didn't have. Because to be 16 and in that position for 30 days, like you'd probably be extremely uncomfortable. It'd probably be quite boring after 30 days. But like he had that willpower to just push through it, which would be unbearable.
Well, sure. Personality, sorry, not personality, mindset is so big, and people underestimate how powerful a positive mindset is and a growth mindset is. That keeps the human young. It actually keeps the human young. When you're always learning and you've got a positive outlook on life where you're always looking for the good rather than being okay with just the bad, that you're going to live a happier, longer life. You are. And back to your story, the reason I say that is because, I mean, if his mindset, I don't know much about Henry and his experience, but if his mindset was a warrior mindset and it was growth mindset and not a give up mentality, then of course that's going to get him over the line when he's like got something in his head. You know what I mean? Like got an arrow through his frontal lobe. It's going to get him over the line, that mindset alone. It's so important. And the mindset ties into this topic because like when we talk about how things don't get easier, you get stronger. And there are so many examples of this that I've experienced. And we can talk about cold showers first because I know that you do cold showers and I've done cold showers as well. I'm starting to get back into it now. When I first did a cold shower or an ice bath, it was like almost impossible to even think that I could do something like that. And I know it sounds very dramatic, but it's very cold. When you get up in the morning, and I used to get up quite early to gym, and it's in the middle of winter, it's really hard to not go in with a hot shower first and then turn it cold for the last 30 seconds. All my morning showers were just cold from the get-go. There was no like warming it up or anything like that. And I didn't start like that though. I had to level up to that point. But I'd start with like maybe a hot shower and then at the last 30 seconds, blast the coldness. And what I started to realize is the more I did it, when I did it 7 days in a row, my brain would start to adjust and become conditioned to how the game works, right? And I've said this so many times on so many other episodes, but my brain would be like, okay, Nate, we get it. You understand how this works. You're going to hop in, you have a shower, you're going to turn the cold water on and it is going to be painful for 15 seconds. And then the pain's going to go away and you're not going to feel anything. And then you're going to get out of the shower and you're going to feel amazing. So when you do it day in and day out, your brain starts to learn things like that. And so a month in, you're like, the cold showers stayed the same. It hasn't got easier. But I've adapted to a point, my brain has adapted to a point where it's like so easy. Like my brain knows. I don't get that anxiety feeling before you turn the cold water on because I know I get excited. I'm like, my brain knows like, okay, cold water on, freezing cold, like heart rate's going to speed up. All this stuff's going to happen for like 10 seconds and then it's going to be okay. And then you're going to feel amazing. And so my brain's adjusted to that. Do you get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, you said it doesn't get easier, but like for you, has the cold shower felt any better? Like, does it actually feel easier?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is what I think, right? Physically, it's the same, bro. It's the
Mm,
same. Physically, the same thing is happening. But from a mindset point of view, because my brain's adapting, of course it feels easier. Bro, I could go right now and switch on the cold water. Like I can hop into a shower cold straight away. Because my brain, because I've done it so many times, and this is really important, what people don't get, you can't just do it once or twice. Because I did it over and over and over again, my brain adjusted. And my brain is like, no, 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 you got to understand, I know how this works because we've done it together before.
hmm
It's actually fine. It's not your fear of it being too cold or it being unbearable is fake. That's an illusion. You're actually fine. It's just that first 10 seconds. So physically it hasn't got easier because I'm still feeling the same coldness on my body, right? The temperature hasn't changed. Nothing in my environment has changed, right? But mentally, my mindset wise, of course it's got easier. Of
Mm.
course it feels easier.
I agree with that. That's exactly where I was going to go with it. What I was going to say is the cold shower itself doesn't get easier, but like you said, after repetition of repetition, it's the comfort while being in discomfort. Like your body, you just get used to it. Like your brain's like tells your body you've done this before. Like why is it any different? It's interesting though. Like yeah, it's not actually easier, but it becomes a more normal thing. Like your level of discomfort, like your level of ability to bear discomfort just rises. And I think cold showers or any discipline like that. I mean, I want to start like running in the morning if I had time, because that I think that's the next level. But in everyday activities, like it's easier to bear the discomfort, and I think that just makes life so much better when the challenges you meet just from having a cold shower in the morning are literally easier. It puts you in a great position to have, like you said, a longer and happier life.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, do you feel like, and the thing is, what's really interesting is because I could actually, and I'm sure there's there's a template out there, a template of follow this and you will master whatever it is that you're trying to master. It's the same thing for every activity, for running, for gym, for things that are internal, your self-talk that people don't see, communicating with strangers, asking a girl out, all this stuff, right? It follows the same blueprint as you hopping into a cold shower. So there's two parts of the cold shower. You're absolutely right. You do it, you accomplish it, and then you feel so set up for the rest of the day. It gives you a sense of confidence because you said you were going to do something and you did it. But what you learn through that journey of battling, because it's a battle, bro. I remember the first time I did it, that was a battle. I stood outside of the shower for a good 5 minutes
Mhm.
battling, like, no, 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 am I going to do this or am I not? I don't know if you did the same thing. The
Yeah.
first time I did it,
I'm smiling here because
tell me.
I've been exactly there. Like when you just under the tap and you just because that's the hardest part, just pulling the
Exactly.
tap. I used to just stand under there, and it was like the last thing I'd do was get out. But I was like, I mean, if I had time, I would just stand there and be like, well, this is it. I gotta do it. But
Exactly, bro. It's funny because we've all been through the same thing. And you know what? It applies for if I have zero confidence and I want to go approach a girl, same thing. I'm going to stand there for 5, 10 minutes and battle with myself. Do I go say something or is she going to think I'm a creep? It's the same blueprint with anything. You go in a gym, you're going to battle with yourself for the first time But the more you do it and the more reps you get in, and this is really important, it's about reps because people, like I mentioned before, they think they can just do it once or twice and that's going to be fine. The more reps you put in, the more confidence you gain, the easier the lag time decreases, right? Because it doesn't get easier, but that lag time decreases. Do you know what I mean by that lag time? So now it doesn't take me as long to turn on the cold water. If anything, I can step into a cold shower. Now, after building my confidence, it might not take me as long. If I see a pretty girl, I want to go say something to her. It might not take me as long. I might not be standing there going back and forth thinking, what's she going to say? What if she thinks I'm this? Like, I just go freaking do it. And then I deal with whatever I have to deal with later. You know what I mean? And it's with anything. Think of anything challenging. And you'd follow the same blueprint of mastering a cold shower. And I feel like if I could sit there and like write it down, that would be a manual to overcoming challenges and mastering certain things in stages. Do you get what I'm saying? And I'm sure there's a book out there that's already done this, where it's like literally breaks it down. Like, this is what you're going to experience in stage 1. Stage 2, this is what you're going to experience. Do it for 3 months. Stage 3, this is what you're going to experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's incredible. I reckon it's incredible. And yeah, anyway, you go. Do you have any other examples or experiences where this is applied to you?
I'm not sure, but what I was just thinking while you're speaking there is for people that like I mean I don't really know why I started doing cold showers. And for people that are at the beginning, like what motivated you to start? It doesn't have to be cold showers, we can move on, but like anything, like what actually motivates you to start? Because there's no instant gratification, there's no instant reward. Like you said, it takes the repetitions. Like that's essential. And you won't get it instantly. So I'm just wondering, like, what do you think actually pushes people over that line?
I think there are 2 things, and this ties back into environment, because I want to talk about the environment and your association, and then I want to talk about my personal journey in trying to be better every year. Like, my motto in life is like, I don't want to go 6 months and be the same person. So if you think about, I'll talk about that in a second actually, but let's talk about association first. I think the quickest way for you to be motivated or compelled to do something as crazy as a cold shower on a morning in winter Melbourne, Victoria, is you are encouraged and motivated by other go-getters who have gone before you. Whether that's people you know personally who might say something, you know, like I'm part of an association where, you know, there's a lot of go-getters, and someone might get up on stage and say, you know, this is what I do, and I might be sitting there thinking, holy crap, that's really inspirational. I want to do it. It might be a movie that you watch. It might be a book that you read. So it's something external that has really pushed you to want to try it, you know, or better yourself. And we can touch on that in a bit more detail, and I'll get your opinion on the association, like the people who are around you. But the second part that I want to touch on is you personally. So I sat with myself. Remember, we're going back to the start. I've never wanted to be average. So I sat with myself and I said, okay, what am I really scared of? I'm really scared of being stagnant. I'm scared of being the same person. I don't want to go 5 years and go to a high school reunion and I'm the freaking same person that I was that they know. I want someone to say, hey, you've changed so much, I actually don't recognize you. Whoop, there it goes. Nah, you're good. That's so funny. I love that.
That's the budget we have here.
The budget. Nah, I love that. That's awesome. But yeah, like change is really important to me. That's one of my values. Change for the better. So I actually sat down. I always sit down with myself and I reflect, and I always try and push myself to new limits. For example, I'll give you an example, right? There was a time where I was eating onion, like a full onion, like an apple. And I wasn't doing that because it tastes good. If anything, my internal gums were bleeding because of all the, what's it called? What's an onion? The acid, you know? So I wasn't doing it for fun, but I was doing it because I wanted to push myself mentally. I knew it was going to be a mental game. I don't do a cold shower for fun. I do it because it's going to push me mentally. Now, as a byproduct of eating raw onion and doing a cold shower and gymming and all this crap, there are benefits to the body. Like, there are massive benefits to a cold shower on the body. There are massive benefits to eating onion on the immune system. But for me, it was more the push to do something that was going to challenge me mentally. Like when you're eating an onion raw, like an apple, that's a big mental challenge. Like every bite you take is like, because you know it's going to hurt and you do it because you just want to push yourself.
Well, before you said there was benefits to the onion, I was trying to think off the top of my head. I was like, there cannot be benefits to eating an onion, and I was gonna rise a point like, is there any point in doing it if there aren't any like straight benefits? But because like with cold showers, there's the increased dopamine, there's the increase in white blood cells, which boosts your immune system. But like with an onion, that's the next level of the discipline and the grind. But I guess if there are benefits, do you think where I'm getting at is, do you think it is healthy, or is it too much to do something like that? Like say there weren't benefits to eating that onion, but you just wanted to do it for the challenge. Is there a line where that's just not the right decision to make, in your opinion?
I think there's a big difference. I mean, let's say an onion had no benefit to my immune system. Then no antioxidants, didn't reduce heart disease, whatever. Right? We all know onions they're actually really good for immune system. And there's a story that I heard that pushed me to want to do this. But let's say it was just an onion and it just tastes really bad, and it doesn't have a positive impact on my health, but also it doesn't have a negative impact on my health. I would still do it because for me, it's challenging my mindset. It is making me resilient. It's something that I don't want to do. Now, that doesn't apply for something like drugs that has a negative impact on my life. Me challenging myself to jump off a cliff where I might risk dying, into like a waterfall where for me, there's no benefit to do that. Like, you have to outweigh the pros and the cons, I think. And it's like, are the like jumping off a cliff to test my mindset in an area that's not safe, where nobody really knows anything about it, are the pros outweighing the cons, or is that maybe just reckless? So you have to identify the difference between pushing yourself to mentally become stronger and just being reckless. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if eating an onion was, yeah, if eating an onion, a raw onion, would give me heart failure, or it would cause some sort of negative impact like a drug, that's just being reckless. That's not me trying to prove a point. That's not me trying to be mentally resilient.
For some people with drugs, I feel like it's the same battle, like it's the same challenge. It's just they choose to do it with that substance. I'm trying to think what do you think creates like the difference in our brain to be able to tell that that's not the right path and this is the right path? Because some people are addicted to that game, and obviously some of the substances are addictive. But why do they choose that route of challenge? Like, I'm trying to think of drugs as they take it as a challenge.
That's really interesting, because I've never understood why people take drugs, and I'm not in any place to judge why people do it. I can only talk about my personal experience, and for me, number one, I've never given in to peer pressure. I've never felt FOMO. You guys can go do a drug, and I'm not going to feel like I need to do it. I was at a party last night. Everyone's drinking and drunk off. A lot of people are drunk off their tits, and I didn't feel a need to drink. I didn't feel like I was missing out. I still had a great time. So for me personally, I've never really understood it, because I don't see it as like I'm missing out on something, or this is gonna, whatever. Whereas a lot of other people, they might be like, well, I want to know what this feels like. Like, what if it's just for one night and I just experience it and then I never touch it again? And I think that that's very rare. I mean, most of the time you get hooked onto it for obvious reasons. But I think once again, it ties into who around you is encouraging you to do what? Who around you is, like, what are they saying to you? What are they doing? But also, I mean, it does also come down to what you know before. I mean, I don't have to do a drug to know the negative impact of it. We have research, we have studies, we have real life examples. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think it goes the same way. Like you and I probably take cold showers because we have the real life examples of that boosted immune system, the increase in white blood cells, and the dopamine increase. I lost my point. I was going somewhere.
Sure,
It's
sure.
yeah, but it's us knowing that it's beneficial rather than having a negative impact to why we
Mm.
choose it. And I think that just comes down to wanting to be the best version of yourself. And I'd like to go into your six month new person motto, or is that something you like try and live by? Is like, yeah, could you touch on that?
Absolutely. And I think 6 months is even stretching it. 6 months is a long time, but it does take a long time to change personality traits. So definitely 6 months at a bare minimum. Sorry, at a like definitely 6 months, but also like 3 months. 3 months is a long time to change things, to change bad habits. So if we're talking about bad habits, 3 months. If we're talking about like personality traits, like I have a bad temper, I wanna be a calm person. Yeah, six months to a year. But you have to be intentionally wanting to do that. But that's something I live by. And that, until the day I die, I need to always be improving. Every 6 months, I need to look back and be like, what did I do differently this 6 months that I didn't in the last 6 months? And I've got to almost like reflect and be like, what can I do in the next 6 months that's different? What have I not done in my life yet that might be a challenge, and do it. And I think that it's not a bad way to live, man. It's not a bad way to live at all. But are people intentional? Do people get to the end of the year and reflect and write down what they accomplished and write down what they didn't accomplish and why? No, I don't think a lot of people do that. And so if you're not tracking, you're going to get 5 years down the track, you're going to be the same person and you're not going to realize.
That's you
But
mentioned it, tracking, something I want to really start. Like, I mean, I'm young, man, so like I've only really had this passion for probably a year and a half. But although I'm like progressing at like levels, it's sometimes I regret not having like a record to look back on, and that's why I want to start. I will start journaling, and I even have this now that has
yeah,
just like, now I can look back on the month. I can see all the podcasts we have just on there. All the hang on, I had a rep tryout this 2 weeks ago, and then yeah. But I want to start doing it on a larger scale. So in the future, I can look back, like you said, like years and years, 5 years ago, and you can really see the.
yeah, absolutely. There was something about that actually. I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to remember what I was thinking about while you were saying all that. Oh, it was such a good point as well.
That's all right. Take your time.
We're talking about being different every 6 months. Oh, tracking. This is tracking is so underutilized, but it is so important, and with everything, right? I'll give you an example. I've started to gain a bit of weight, and I was like, I used to back in the day, like a year ago, I used to track my food. Like I would take a scale everywhere. My family, if I went to gatherings, they'd know that I take a scale, and I would just weigh everything just to put it in MyFitnessPal. I stopped doing that for a while because I wanted to put weight on. I was intentionally trying to put weight on to get a bit bigger. And so I stopped tracking. Then I realized, like, okay, this is not really the right thing to do because I'm putting weight on and I'm not putting muscle on it. And the weight is just going to my hips and not to my chest and my arms and my shoulders and whatever, right? Anyway, so it was the other week and I was eating peanut butter. I was putting peanut butter into my shake and I don't track anymore. Out of curiosity, I was like, maybe I should just weigh this and see how much it is, how many calories it would be. Keep in mind, I've been doing this every day for the past like week. This same amount of scoop. So anyway, I put it on the scale. You know how many calories I've been having in that one shake without me knowing?
How many?
That one scoop of peanut butter, which was like, it's a big scoop, but that
Yeah.
one scoop was 589 calories in that one scoop.
Wow.
And think about it. I've been doing it every day. And keep in mind, I put 5 eggs. So it's 5 eggs in the shake. It's a scoop of peanut butter. it's the protein powder as well. So that's like 1,000 calorie shake,
Yeah, damn.
right? And in my head, I'm like, why the hell am I getting fat? It's like, bro, because you're not tracking. If
Mm,
you were tracking, you'd know that that's too much, but you don't realize. And people live life like that. People live life on default, autopilot mode. They don't track, they don't pay attention to their anything. And then 5 years goes down the track. 5 years goes,
mm.
and they're like, "Holy crap! What? When did that happen? How did I miss all that time?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's something I really
And it's
want
the
to
same.
touch on. So
Go
you're
go go.
talking about how you have the eggs, you have the protein, you're doing the right things, you have the right ideas,
Yeah,
but
boy.
it comes down to how you do it. Because still, you're putting all the protein in, you're doing the things that you think are the what are going to put you on that path to gaining more muscle or whatever your goals are, but it's still not enough. Like you need to be doing it in the right way, which is what is it? Work smarter, not harder. So if you can do
Exactly,
both, that's what you need. Like yeah, it's that
dude.
balance.
Exactly. It's not even that. It's not even about balance. It's about being aware. It's
Mm,
about actually being aware. Because the thing is, you're absolutely right. There's nothing in that shake that is unhealthy per se, except for 589 calories of peanut butter. It's like raw egg, protein. I don't even put milk, water. Like it's quite healthy, but because I'm not aware of what I'm doing and I'm just kind of like doing it, and I'm not. I don't want to keep using the word tracking, but I'm not tracking what I'm actually doing. Long term, it ends up being very unhealthy. Long term, I end up putting weight on because I'm not aware of how many calories I'm actually consuming, even though my intention
mm,
is to be healthy. So tracking is a big thing, man. It's with everything. With gym, if you go to gym for a year, if you don't track your progress, you're never going to get better. Because if you're just going and casually lifting weights, which is what I do for my mental health, and I'm not actually tracking how heavy I'm lifting, how am I ever going to know if I'm getting better? You know what I mean? Tracking
yeah,
is so important. I think with everything, man, like everyone should track everything. It's the only way you're going to get better.
I agree. I agree. I think I need something I should start doing more for sure. Out of curiosity, does that shake actually taste good?
Yeah, but look, let me. The short answer is yes. The long answer is this: I don't eat for pleasure, and there's only one thing I have for pleasure, and it's like a vanilla chai, dirty chai. It's the only thing I have for pleasure to keep myself sane. I don't actually eat for pleasure. Recently, I've kind of been going out. I've been having like chicken at this place. It's really nice. But majority of the time when I eat, it's just to do what I got to do. Like back to the onion mentality type of thing. So, for example, recently I made this raw ginger. This is disgusting, by the way, bro. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram. I got my sister to try it.
I
I was
did
like,
see that. Yeah.
if you can drink this whole thing, I'll give you $50. Bro, it's disgusting. And it hits you a bit late because she drunk it and she's like, give me my 50. And then it hit her after. And she's like, what is that? She was, anyway, it tastes like poison, basically. It tastes like poison, bro. It's raw ginger and it's like 200 grams of raw ginger and then paprika. Dude, it tastes like poison. You're drinking poison. Anyway, so I once again, there's a lot of benefits to that. Okay. Health benefits. But I made it, and I'm not drinking it for pleasure. I'm drinking it because there's a benefit to it, and I want to gain that benefit. So
Mm,
I've conditioned myself over probably 3 4 years to have that relationship with food, where it's like if I know there's a direct benefit to it, I'm just gonna down it, bro. I don't even care. I'll deal with the fact that I can taste the raw eggs later. I'm just gonna down it, and do you know what I mean?
mm. Do you ever have eggs by
But like.
themselves, like just raw eggs?
I've done that maybe once, and the
Mm,
texture's just too much for me.
yeah,
But it's
same. Did it the other day.
like I don't know. For me, I'm like yeah, sure, I can do that, but I put it in a shake anyway. Like I have 5 raw eggs in the shake. Like it's still basically the same thing, but it's just the texture's not as slimy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
How did you find doing it? You did the other day.
I've done it twice, and the first time I did it, it was like fine, and then I did it the other day, and it just sucked. I don't know. I like it was bad. I was like washing my mouth out for like a minute afterwards. But the first time, I think the first time I just committed more, and I didn't like it just went down. But like the second time, big mistake.
Dude, it's disgusting. It's so gross. But you should try raw onion. That is unbelievable
Mm,
because
sounds
you
full
actually physically like destroy your gums inside, and then you
on.
can't eat anything for like the next couple of hours. But yeah, anyway, I'm just
Off
trying to
topic,
think if
bro.
there's anything else. What's that?
We're off topic, bro.
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't be a
I had
podcast without going
something.
off topic.
I had something.
Mm.
What was it? You were talking about. It was basically about delayed happiness, like training yourself to become comfortable without the instant dopamine hit. Like with your food, that's a pretty big thing, man. If you're eating everything, like a lot of people eat food as a dopamine release and they don't even know it. Do you find, I'm sure you do, but out of those things where you're not getting the instant happiness, like the cold shower, I mean it is pretty instant after you've turned it on, but the first part sucks. With your food, it's probably more long term. It's probably more in a year, this will get me to my goals, or I'll need to do this to get me to my goals. Do what was I saying? Do you think? How do you know that that's the path like you want to take? It's hard. It's hard to choose that that version of happiness, if you will. Does that make sense?
How do I? Yeah, so how do I mean like
Yeah. So
that
how do you know
delayed
that's the
gratification?
yeah? How do you know that's like what is good for you? Because it's hard. It's hard to choose that. This is
I guess
put answer this in the lens of people that don't have much of that delayed gratification in their life.
yeah. I guess that they listen to something like this and it inspires them. Everything we do in life is inspired by someone else, by a book, by a movie. So they read a book and they get inspired. They listen to someone and they get inspired. But the next step is like, all right, you've just got to do it. And then once again, as I mentioned before, if you understand the blueprint, I'm telling anyone who's listening, there's a blueprint and it applies to everything. The same process that I follow to get it to do a cold shower is the same process I follow to eat an onion. Is the same process I follow to go to gym in the morning. Is the same process I follow to whatever it is. And so if you can just challenge yourself with something just little, like think of anything that you've wanted to do and be like, yeah, I'm going to work towards this. And you begin to learn and then you push through. Like you've got to, like if we're talking about a delayed gratification, like it's pretty self-explanatory. You're not going to get the the positive impact straight away. So you've got to go into it knowing that. You can't go into it feeling like, oh, but I didn't feel great straight away, and then letting that discourage you from doing it again. Like you've got to understand that the way that we're raised is the opposite to how it should be. We're raised in an instant gratification type of world where everything is instant. Where if you're not on your phone, if you're trying to study for an exam, most people can't even do that without checking their phone every like 30 seconds. That's just how we're raised. That's our
Mm.
environment. So you got to remember you're trying to unlearn that and train your brain to do something completely opposite, where you're not going to feel good in the immediate future, but long term you're going to feel good. So you got to know that it's a mentality as well. You've got to know that,
Mm.
and then
Hey,
it's about doing.
yeah.
So inspiration, mentality. You got to know the game, and then it's about doing. You got to do it with something, and that's how you learn. That's how you learn.
Thumbs up. It's just
Dude,
a
I have no idea why that happened. Anyway, it's a bit weird.
yeah, I was gonna
But
say
yeah.
it does suck, but it's so much more rewarding. Like I think
Mm,
I'm like the happiest I've ever been, and I'm doing the most stressful and like full on stuff I've ever done in my life. But it gives purpose and like fulfillment, which I think is like so powerful. Like when you can be so happy in what you're doing while doing the really challenging stuff. It's so much more worth it than just eating a cupcake. Like although it's delayed, like I'm like here to say it provides a different like attitude to life. Like I just yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And you got to think of it like this as well. Obviously, anything good is going to be hard to achieve. Okay? Anything good for you is going to be a bit of a struggle because if there wasn't that struggle, then everybody would be doing it and everybody would be experiencing it. There's a reason why the reward on the other side of struggle tastes a lot better than the reward you get for doing nothing. You know, someone who's really had to grind it out and reach levels of success, that hits a lot different. And even people, when we listen to their stories, that hits us a lot different than someone who was handed things and didn't have to work hard for it. We don't relate to that type of story. You know, if you came to me and you're like, hey, my dad just bought me this and, you know, I've got a trust fund and this, that, I don't relate to that. There's nothing about that that wants me to be better. I don't think about that and get inspired.
Mm.
So obviously, if that's how we are as humans, where going through the struggle is really the reward in itself, then obviously with something like delayed gratification, you're 100% going to feel better after it than instant. You're 100% going to get a different result as to someone who is just getting things instantly or is on TikTok and getting their dopamine hits from TikTok or swiping on Tinder. You know, I've used this example before, but I think it's a beautiful example, right? Your dopamine. I mean, if I take the time to get to know someone and I put a lot into that friendship and that friendship evolves over time, that is a lot more beautiful than me just like being forced to sit with someone and we have to be friends because like we're in the same class or whatever. Or like with a potential, you know, love interest. If I'm swiping on Tinder and I match with someone and we whatever, that's so different to like me actually taking the time to court someone and get to know someone and go out of my way to like do little things like little romantic gestures to try and win her over. There's a
Mm.
and what there's a quick game which is Tinder, quick game in an hour I can beat your place, or there's a long game where it's like no I'm building towards this, and the fulfillment you get from that is a lot greater than a one night stand. Correct?
Mhm.
It's with anything, bro. Anything like the delayed gratification and that mindset to do what is harder, you're always going to get a better result than trying to take an easy route. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think although it's way harder, it's the ability to just fall in love with the process, which is the time. For me, that's I think that's one change I've made, and it's doing wonders.
Yeah, for sure. Process versus outcome is an interesting debate. A lot of people say you have to be outcome focused. Some people say you need to be process driven because if you don't love what you do, then you know. But I think it's interesting because process driven is important, but I think it's important to not be passion driven. Do you get what I'm saying? And I think there's a difference
Yeah.
between passion and process. Fall in love with the process because it's going to give you the outcome you want. But if you are passion focused, then whenever you're not feeling good about the task, like if we're building Tycho and I wake up one day and I don't feel like doing it anymore. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I did not feel like doing this podcast today, and I had a late night, but like I got home pretty late. Like it was like 3 in the morning. Keep in mind, I was completely sober, didn't touch a drug, and I'm still wrecked. But it's like I did not feel like doing this podcast this morning. And if I was passion driven, I would have been like, nah, dude, screw it. Like, let's not do it. Or if
Mm.
I'm passion driven, I'm gonna get to a point. I'm gonna be like, this doesn't excite me anymore. I'm gonna stop doing it. And what people don't get is with anything, bro. Like when you start your agency, that I want to talk about maybe in the next podcast. Let's do that.
Yep.
You're gonna have days where you're not gonna feel like doing it. You're gonna have days where you're like, I don't even know if I want to do this. Like I'm not passionate about this.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And you've got to be able to push through those days because with any business, you're gonna have those days. And so
I
if you're
think
passion focused, yeah, go.
so. Yeah, I think it's the balance. Like I think one of the reasons I've found myself in the situation I am with the editing and the filming and all that is because I'm extremely passionate about it. But the consistency side of it, I think you're right, comes down to that like objectives and your process, like your goals, and like just like I think you really need both, but also that discipline and motivation to keep going and stay consistent does come from like your processes, because passion can.
Sure, absolutely. There's another thing, and look, we'll wrap it up because it's almost been an hour. Another thing I want to touch on, and maybe we can do this in a separate episode, is like emotional intelligence and actually building on that. Emotional intelligence, your EQ, it is actually crazy how many people out there lack EQ. There are so many people out there who are NPCs and they don't have emotional intelligence. Maybe we do a whole podcast on that, because I think that when you do things like a cold shower and you do things like eating an onion, you do things like gymming every morning and running a half marathon and running in the morning and all this stuff that we know pushes you to be better, I think at the same time, your emotional intelligence is improving as well, which is crazy, but I actually believe that. Now,
Yeah,
that's a big topic though.
I agree. I'm really. Let's do that next week. I'm interested to like research that a
Yeah,
little bit,
done.
because I can definitely
Yeah,
see
me too.
how it would happen. I can see how it would work, but I want to know why.
Perfect. Yeah, we're not ready for it now, but let's both look
Yeah.
into it. We'll talk about it next week's episode, and that's a good place to end this one, because I think emotional intelligence, man. And then I'm going to look into the nurture versus nature again. Are people born with it? Can you develop EQ? Because we both know that we come across people. I've come across people, and I'm not saying this from a place of judgment, but I come across people who have zero EQ. Like they can't read a room. They just, do you know what I mean? And it's not, and I'm not saying, keep in mind, EQ is different from being on the spectrum. I'm not saying they're on the autism spectrum. Then people like that are not on the spectrum and they just don't have an emotional intelligence. And I think that's interesting. Like, is it nature? Is it nurture?
Mm.
Do these things help? What can help with EQ? You know what I mean? So let's talk about it next week. I think that's a great topic we should touch on.
Yeah, done. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too, man. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week. It's going to be an exciting topic.